Pretty cool, huh? Would you like to see this? Got drawers to put the pieces in. I bet you'd like to see how we built this, huh? I did it in 3 different sections, so if you want to pay attention, you can watch and see how we did this. Now for now, it's your move. What you gonna do? Well, welcome back to Doc's Projects once more. Today we're going to be doing a chessboard. They're becoming pretty popular lately, so I thought, what the heck, I'll do a chessboard. So I went to my good buddies over there at Woodworker Source in the Phoenix area. They're actually in Tempe off of Elliott. Great place to go if you happen to be in the area. They're very helpful. They got all kinds of tools, all kinds of woods. And I've got this, this is roasted red oak, and this is maple, so I'll be using these for the light and dark squares. I'm going to show you how to put the checkerboard itself together first, and then how to build the rest of it around it, including the drawers for storage, etc. So stick around, watch how I do this, and we're going to make all this stuff happen. One of the first things you want to do to make sure is that these have a perfect 90-degree cut on the side. If you don't have a joiner to run them through to make them so, you can use the table saw, but there's a few tricks to that you got to learn. You want to make sure that they're perfectly square with each other, because if they're a little bit off, you can see what's going to happen, or off the other way, you're going to end up with a bow one way or the other. So you want to make sure that they're perfectly fit against each other. One nice thing about those at Woodworker Source is they give me these and they're already pretty much squared away. But you always want to check the table saw. I got a handy little thing right here that you might want to get used to. I'm going to show you about the table saw, part of the problem. It's got a magnetic base, so first thing you can do is you can set it right here and make sure that it's at 0 degrees. And you want 90 degrees, so you can raise the blade up, and you can measure that. Let's get to doing the sawing. I'm going to get this all measured up for you. Okay, now I've got the blade set perfectly. This comes to be a little bit more than 1.5 inches wide, and I want the squares to be 1.5 inches exactly. So I measured it up here. These are actually 1.75 inches. So I got it set. Got the stop here set so that it'll give me exactly 1.5 inches. In some cases like that, the little strip that comes off there, I'm going to save that because you never know, later on I might be able to use that as a inlay for something else. Maybe even for this. This is the most important step. When you run these through, to make sure that you got them nice and exactly 1.5 inches the way you want it, once you're done with that, do not move this at all. Reason being, after you have them all cut to size, the dark and the light, there's 4 dark, 4 light, so they have a total of 8 squares going across. Once you have that done, you're going to be gluing these all up. And after all of them are glued together, you're going to be putting them on here and cutting them this way, and you want to make sure that each cut you make makes it a perfect square. I have it set for 1.5 inches, whatever you have it set for. As long as you cut it through here, and then you turn these sideways and go this way through, you're going to have a perfect square. That's the main thing. So let's get to sawing. I'll show you just a couple of them. I don't want to bore you by making the video too long, but I just want to show you real quick how this is going to work. So let's get to it. Safety first. So, as I mentioned, you want to make sure they're exactly square. So, hope you were listening when I said that. I'll say it again. Once you set this and lock this skirt down here to make the perfect width that you want, do not move this for any reason at all until you've got all of these glued up together. And we'll go through the side. I'll show you how that's done. That's the big tip of the day. Let's get on to the rest part. I'll be gluing all these up after I got them all cut, and then we'll come back and we'll cross cut them. We'll go from there. Okay, if you had time to subscribe and like, appreciate that. That was a good time to do that. Anyway, got these laid out. I'm going to bring the camera up closer to show you a little bit about the sizes and how I'm going to measure this out and a few key points. So Give me just a minute and I'll reposition the camera for you. I like to take the one end and I try to line it up as close as I can. You can take a straight edge if you like, but eyeballing it for right now is going to be okay because you're going to saw cut it anyway. So, if you know your math, since each one of these is going to be 1.5 inch squares, then for each one of these is 1.5 times 8. Let's see, from math class I think that's 12. And looky there, lined right up on 12. So I got them cut right. Everything looks good. The other thing to notice too is, since they're all longer over here, it's going to be a 12-inch square. So 12 inches comes to here. Let me get that out of the way so you can see where the 12 mark is. So the square is going to be only to here. I'm going to have all this excess wood left over. What am I going to do with that? Here's a couple of thoughts. I like to do cutting boards as well, cutting boards and charcuterie boards. And one of the things I like to do is to make a cutting board along with a couple of what they call trivets. Okay, I'm getting ready to glue these up now. You might notice that I've got wax paper down here on both sides. That'll help to keep the glue from sticking to everything. I've got my clamps ready to go once I've got it glued up. And you might notice these are a little bit shorter. Remember they were longer before? Well, instead of gluing them all up and then cutting them and having these all stuck together, remember I said I might be able to use those for a trivet later? So I decided to use my skill saw, cut these off. So anyway, I'm getting ready to glue these up, set them down, got the clamps ready to go. And then these outside boards I will put on top here, clamp them down, and that helps to squeeze them together to make sure that they're all not cattywampus from each other. That's a new word I taught you, cattywampus. Some of you may have heard that before. So I'm going to go ahead and glue it up, and I'll speed up the film. I used the Titebond number 2. It's a good strong one. Notice it says also that it's water resistant interior and exterior. It also says here it's FDA approved for indirect food contact. That way you can use this for a lot of cutting boards and things like that because it has indirect contact. Up and down against each other. Till tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, so it's tomorrow. I let it cure for a day. So I can start to take it all apart. Notice how the glue doesn't stick real hard to the wax paper. Okay, so I'll use my chisel to clean that up a little bit, show you when I get to that point, clear off my table so I can get to that point, and then we're going to go over to the table saw, start cutting it this way. I want to make sure that one of these edges is perfect. There's a little bit of a difference on both sides, but that's why I do this first cut, just a little bit to shave this down, make this perfectly square with itself. You always want to make sure that you brush off the sled when you're doing something like this. So I'm going to eyeball it to just barely shave across that front one. And then after that I'll take the sled off and you'll see how that goes. So let me get my safety glasses. I'll turn on the vacuum. Okay, so now I have a nice perfect straight edge right there. And that's what I'll be using to go up against the fence after I remove this. Stay tuned, you'll see how that works. Okay, now you remember I had this measured. Remember I told you it was very important to make sure not to move this guide because you got the perfect 1.5 inch. And now we're going to run this through this way and be cutting off the same exact 1.5 inches across this way. Okay, now I'm going to take them over and I'll show you the magic. Okay, so now that we've got all these cut to size, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, we've got them all set up. Here's where the magic part happens. Watch closely, pick up every other one and just flip it over. Flip it over. Look what's happening. Are you just as amazed as can be? Come on, you can applaud if you like. Applaud. Look at that, the checkerboard. Of course, we got to smooth it out. We got some glue spots here and there, but that's why we run it through the planer. So get these all squared up. We'll run this. Actually, we put this all together. We'll glue it up just like I did before. Just glue the sides up, and then once it's all set up, later on, we'll run it through the planer, be nice and smooth, and then all we got to do is build a frame around it. Once we get the frame around it, then we'll decide if we're going to build a storage box underneath with drawers. So that's the basic part about building your checkerboard. Just get the light and dark strips first off, and then go through and cut them. And then once you've got them cut again, glued up again, and then cut them, and just flip up every other one. Make sure that you've got alternating squares, and you're all squared away. So that's pretty much it for doing this part. On part 2, I'll be showing you how we'll build the framework around it, put a design in it, and then we'll build the box underneath with the drawers to hide away the chess people. See you on the next one. Don't forget to subscribe, appreciate it, and watch out for part 2.